Mattie Mondays, where we do music in different ways. I guess friends ain't be dropping gems. Always keep it genuine. Knowledge, power, and some funny. Every week, every Monday. Pure, real, and honest. Tap in, leave a comment. You're tuning in to Mattie Mondays.
All right, so we are back around another 7 days here at Mattie Mondays, where we do music in different ways. As you guys have seen, we definitely stop and pause for the cause to celebrate the moments in time that we encounter. And of course, we have just celebrated Father's Day. If you did not catch it, I was able to do an episode to speak to 3 generations of mothers on Mother's Day, and we have to do it just as good, just as right this time around for our fathers. So we'll have 3 generations of voices and conversations that you guys will hear, just diving into what the journeys have looked like from, I guess, a beginner to, stair step up to a veteran of fatherhood as it pertains to time and skin in the game. But with my first guest, my first voice that you will hear will be of my brother, my play brother, Prel Warren. Prel, can you introduce yourself to the room?
Absolutely. Thank you for letting me be here. My name is Prel Warren. I am a new father. My son just turned 1 June 12th. And this journey has been, nothing short of amazing. It has taught me so much. I've been in the fitness industry for a very long time, so I've gotten to learn from a lot of different demographics of people. Some older, some younger, some the same age. So I was able to really pick up a lot of skills from just various different people and different groups of people and ways of living outside of my own upbringing. I've been in the modeling industry for a couple years now. I just started also a new job working with a public adjuster. So I try to dabble in a little bit of everything and try to pick up as much knowledge as I can, so that way that I can pour into my son as much as I possibly can, in addition to the things that he picks up on his own. So
Oh, yeah.
I'm grateful to be a father. It's been the biggest blessing that I can ever ask for. So I'm happy to be here and drop any knowledge, any parts of my journey that I can that could help or inspire someone, and just give back to our community.
Beautiful. Thank you. And we appreciate it. And we're going to dive right in. So, can you take us back to when fatherhood started for you? I guess, right? Just over a year ago.
Yeah. So just about over a year ago, we was in the hospital. I had a couple of days before my wife went into labor. I was in, I think I was in South Carolina doing a modeling job,
Mm.
and I was a little nervous. I was going to cancel it because I didn't want to miss the opportunity to see my son being born. So we ended up talking about it, me and my wife. Her name is Erin, and I ended up going. It's a great opportunity, and I told her she wasn't allowed to give birth until I got back. And by the grace of God, he granted me that blessing, and I got back, and her water still hadn't broke. And I told her, I got back super late. I was very exhausted. I said, whatever you do, do not go into labor at like 2 a.m. And she's like, all right, I'll do my best. So funny story. She did not go into labor at 2 a.m. That night. She went into labor at 2 a.m. the next night.
Oh, wow.
So God was looking out. He allowed me to get just a little bit of rest so that I would be, aware and, be all hands on deck. And, it wasn't like what I thought was going to happen. In movies, you see a woman's water break, and
Yeah.
it's like, let's haul it to the hospital. It's not even like that. Like, it's not even close to that. Like, a lot of people, including my wife, like the water broke. And it kind of kept leaking for a little while. I wasn't really sure what that process was going to look like, but
Right.
we called the doctor and they said, asked her some questions and they said, okay, well, just take your time. If you start feeling anything, go ahead and start coming in. So it's not even really a rush process. And I can't say that it's not like that for some people, but for us, that wasn't, really our experience.
Yeah.
And, so we're sitting down in the kitchen, my nerves are, starting to kick in because, I don't know what to expect. And it's like, oh, this is like really real. When you see the first ultrasound, it's like, all right, it's getting real. And then, you get a little bit closer to the end. It's like, all right, it's getting a little more real.
Right.
But then when the water breaks, it's like, all right, definitely ain't no going back now. Like it's time to really, really lock in. So, she, had a little meal and then we went to the hospital and, we waited for a little while and a couple hours later, really not long, my son was born. There was a few complications during the process, but nothing that, was causing really any problems.
Awesome.
Just, your normal things. There's a little bit of tearing and things like that, which is very common. And he came out, he was 7 pounds, 9.7 ounces.
Very
And he was a big boy. And at that moment, once I laid eyes on him, it was like my life had changed.
Mm.
But it didn't change the way that I thought it was going to change. To kind of fast forward a little bit, it didn't really click for me until a few months later. One of the beginning challenges, and I hope I'm not going too fast.
Yeah, you're good.
I know you're going to ask some different questions, but a couple months later, it was very hard for me to like really adapt to this new lifestyle. Because for so long it was just me. It was just me by myself. We all go through our series of dating different people, and then you finally settle down, and then it's not just you anymore. Now you have to worry about your significant other. So that part wasn't as hard to adapt to. Just being able to, because your significant other is also an adult, so there's not really much that you really have to do to really take care of that person, as much as you would, a newborn.
Yeah.
So that part wasn't as hard, but being able to adapt to this newborn was extremely hard for me. And it's so shocking to me because I wanted to be a parent more than my wife did. When we first met, she wasn't sure that she even wanted kids. And I was okay with that. I thought that, if this is God's plan, then, there's other ways that, we can have a child. There's, adoption, there's fostering. So I wasn't going to, let my mindset get the best of me. And I said, whatever God's plan is, we'll go with that. And we ended up, we got married, and on the way to our honeymoon, she was like, you know what, let's just do it. And I'm like, what you talking about? She's like, let's just go ahead and have a kid. I said, what? All right, cool, bet. So we ended up having a honeymoon baby. She got pregnant literally a couple weeks later. So it really didn't take us that long. So we are extremely blessed, especially with, the challenges that some women face when it comes to getting pregnant.
That's right.
So I have so much respect and love for all the women out there who, go through these different procedures to try to get pregnant. And I can only imagine how taxing and hard and challenging that is, not only on a woman's body, but on a woman's mindset. So salute to all the queens out there, all the moms, y'all are the real ones. No, I'm for real. Like, being a dad has allowed me to see women from such a different perspective, just being able to carry a baby for 9 months, sometimes longer, the challenges and changes that their body goes through, the hormones, the emotions, like it's a lot. And, men, we don't have to go through that. We have to be able to be that strong, that hard rock for our women and our significant others, so that they, they're not feeling alone. Because in a sense, a lot of women probably do feel alone because men, can get pregnant and men can't carry a child. So I'm sure there are women that feel alone. So we have to be strong and be the men of the house to make sure that we are picking up all the extra slack and making sure that our wives have everything that they need and more. So it's been such a rewarding journey thus far, and I'm looking forward to so many more milestones. My son started walking literally a day before he turned 9 months.
Oh
So
man,
he is extremely accelerated. Just seeing some of the things that he's doing now and how quickly he's learned is just mind blowing.
that's beautiful. Now you mentioned at the top of that,
Mhm.
um, it wasn't like what you thought it was gonna be.
Mhm.
What was that vision in your head before he actually got here? What did you think it was gonna be?
So what I thought it was going to be when he first got here, I thought it was going to be something as simple as like, you feed the baby, you put the baby to sleep, and just the obvious things.
Hmm.
But it wasn't like that at all. I mean, the without that form of communication, that's the part that me and I'm sure a lot of other men and probably some women go through as well. Like you enter this new journey thinking like, okay, I have an idea of what I want to do, but all our ideas of what we want to do go out the window because when you lose that form of communication, that verbal communication that like me and you are doing right now, you
Right.
know newborns can't talk, so you have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
You don't know if they're happy, you don't know if they're sad. They could be crying, and that could be their form of showing happiness. Like you have no idea. So when you're going through moments of consistent crying, like you don't know what to do, you don't know what to try, and because everybody's journey is so different, all babies when they enter this world, their no journey is the same. Some babies they hardly ever cry. Some babies cry all the time. Some babies sleep all the time. Some babies hardly ever sleep. Some babies can tolerate breast milk. Some babies can't tolerate breast milk. Some can tolerate formula. Some can't tolerate formula. So that was like such a huge change for me without that form of communication. And what I was starting to get into before was my strong desire to be a father primarily came from I want to be able to give my son or daughter the life that I felt like that I wanted in the sense of um, availability and parents that were always there, always showing love, making you feel comforted, making you feel supported, making you feel, loved and cherished and all those things.
Yes.
And, my parents, they obviously love me, but, that generation, our parents, they went through different things that what we may have went through. And it helped me understand when I learned a little bit more about my parents' childhood, it helped me have a different perspective on how I felt like that they, raised me. And it helped me understand that, they only did what they knew how to do.
Yeah.
So by being able to understand that, it gave me the ability to give myself grace because I'm only going to be able to give my son or daughter what I know how to give them outside of the things that I felt like I wanted more of, being the love and the support and just being around all the time. Those were the things where I said, okay, I didn't get these things. So I want to make sure that my son knows that no matter what, I'm going to be at every extracurricular activity, every sporting event, it doesn't matter what he's doing. I want to be there. Those were the moments where I felt like I didn't have growing up when I was doing certain extracurricular activities. A lot of times I would either see no parents in the stand or one parent in the stand. And that's not something that I want to, have my son feeling. I want my son to 100% know that no matter what, my dad, my mom's got my back. They're going to support me. They're going to allow me to make the decisions that I want to make. Just being able to allow him to experience everything that the world has to offer. Growing up, all I knew was football, baseball, and basketball. I
Yeah.
didn't even know. I didn't even know soccer was a thing. I didn't even know golf was a thing. I barely even knew what bowling was, and like just those things where you weren't or you weren't exposed to those things. I want to be able to give my son that ability to be exposed to everything there is out there. But it took me probably four or so months for me to actually lock in. And a lot of people use that term so loosely. when it comes to, working jobs or fitness or, just their professional career. Like, it's time to really lock in. But I don't really think many people understand what it truly means to lock in. Locking in doesn't necessarily mean like, all right, I'm going to go put in some work and, let's see what happens. No, locking in is when things are so much against you, when you haven't slept in a few days and your significant other hasn't slept in a few days and you still got to go to work, you still have to feed your kids, you still have to clean the house, you still have to do all those things that at this point you feel so tired that you don't want to do them, but you do them anyways
Yeah.
because that is your responsibility. That's what locking in actually means. Locking in doesn't mean, well, I got a little time, I can go to the gym. No, locking in means, all right, I got to work all day. I'm not a morning person, but the only time I can go to the gym is at 4 a.m. And I'm going to go to the gym 4 a.m. every single day because I'm committed and this is my goal. And this is what I want to do. That's locking in. Doing the hard thing when you don't really want to, when you don't feel like it, but being able to do that anyways. And it took me about 4 months to really lock in as a father to be able to understand, like, it's not just you anymore. And I was just so caught up at, like, it wasn't like I was doing it on purpose or I was nervous or anything. It was just like my mindset just didn't click that, like, yo, you are a father now.
Right.
Like, life is different. Like, you can't just, think about yourself anymore, think about feeding yourself. Like, your wife has a job, she has all the same responsibilities as you, plus a few extra. You have to be able to step up and, take a large portion of this role and provide for your family. And providing doesn't always mean financially.
Yeah.
It could mean certain duties around the house. Just picking up the slack when your wife is tired. She's carried a baby for 9 months and she hadn't slept, and the baby kept y'all up all night. Like, being able to just be like, you know what, I know I'm tired too, but I'm the man of the house and I have to do what's right. And this is my family. If I say I love them, then I need to be the one to step up and do the harder thing and allow my wife to get rest, because during the 9 months of her carrying a child, I got to rest whenever I wanted.
Yeah.
Her body told her when she was going to rest. Her body told her when it was going to be nauseous or sick, or when you weren't, or where you were going to eat. Like, my body didn't do that. So now that this child is here, this blessing, now it's your time to step up when all the cards, may or may not be against you. So it took me literally 4 months to be able to, like, snap out of it and, like, hey, get it together.
No, that's really dope, and that's really honest. What was there something specific that happened? Do you remember?
So, and I think a lot of it is based on, like, my wife's personality. A lot of times she would, like, say she's going to do something. So instead of me offering to do it instead of her, I would just let her do it. And after so long, I got so accustomed of her saying that she was going to do things that I didn't even think about doing it, because I assumed that she was going to do it. So I kind of, like, almost took a back seat, because she, a few times said that she were going to do, like, for example, let's say get up with the baby or feed the baby. And for a while, she did primarily just breastfeed before we even got into doing bottles. But even when we got into doing bottles, like, I would offer, like, periodically, like, hey, do you need any help? And
She's probably thinking in her head, always.
right, and she's probably thinking always.
Always.
And at the end of the day, it ended up, after we've had different conversations, she picked up on kind of like my word choice, and it made her, my actions and the things that I was doing, and just the conversations made it seem like that I was trying to help her, opposed to being that team player. I'm not here to necessarily just assist her or help her. Like, I'm in charge as well. She wanted me to essentially learn how to take charge as a father, which at that point I didn't really know how to do. My parents didn't sit down and tell me, like, this is your responsibility. These are the challenges you're going to have. Like, we just didn't have that kind of relationship. So I was essentially winging it. And her dynamic with her parents is a lot different. Her and her parents are, like, super, super tight, super, super close. Me and my family isn't quite like that. We're close, but we don't we're not close,
The line of
essentially.
communication is different.
Exactly. The
Mhm.
communication is different. So, it took me a little bit to understand like you're not just here to assist. You're a parent. You have equal responsibilities here. So I had to change my mindset and my thought process and how I was verbalizing things to like, hey, let me do that. Hey, I want to do this, not do you need help?
Yeah,
Because her personality, and it took me a while to like learn the new version of her. She doesn't like to inconvenience someone else, so she would rather inconvenience herself before felt like she was inconveniencing me. Whether like if I told her I was tired, and me knowing she was tired, she would do it because she knew I was tired, so I didn't have to do it. But I wasn't doing that for her,
mhm,
and it took me a while to like pick up on that. But once I did, when I say I was locked in, like the tiredness, it didn't matter. The hunger didn't matter. Like nothing else mattered. If he woke up, I'm like, all right, I got it. Let me do it. You go to sleep. If he needed a bottle, all right, I got it. Let me do it. You go do something else for yourself. Like when I finally locked in, it was a game changer, and I felt closer to my son because before I like really really locked in, being trying to be a great dad. My son was so clingy to my wife because she spent most of the time with him.
yeah,
And when I would go to like try to pick him up or do things with him, he would cry. And in my mind, it's like, dang, that sucks. Like that hurts. And over time, it was like a stab in the heart. Every single time I would try to pick him up, he would cry and get real fussy. So I got to the point I didn't even want to pick him up
yeah,
because I didn't even want to take the chance of being hurt and disappointed. But it took me a while to understand why this was happening. It's
yeah,
because I wasn't being involved. I wasn't doing what I said I wanted to do in the beginning, which was being involved. But when
yeah.
I started to really, really understand what that meant and I started being more involved, he became just as clingy with me than he was with her. And then now,
That's a bar. That's a bar. 'Cause
is
I'm sure a lot of fathers feel that way,
hmm
but the way you just laid it out, I've witnessed. It's like, okay, mom's got it, and not as a shot, just as like just normal.
hmm
But I've also seen it on several occasions, or few occasions, but examples of where men just kind of stepped in
hmm
with that interaction, that those bonds are different with the
hmm
with the child. Yeah, where they inserted themselves, or not even inserted themselves, where they started to approach it as, I'm not the supporting cast, I'm the partner
hmm
in raising this child. I like
and
how you phrase that, yeah. Where you started to approach it as, hey, we're partners in this game.
hmm And it's different for everybody. Like I said before, like a lot of it is how you were raised. She was a lot more involved in the beginning because she had two fantastic parents. My parents are great too. I could hype them up as well, but just being around her parents and then being around my parents, I see how completely different their parenting styles were, and that also stems from how they were brought up. So everybody has their upbringing and their childhood, but at the end of the day, when you become a parent, in my opinion, none of that matters anymore. Like it all depends on what you and your significant other want to do and how y'all want to raise your child and your children, and it has to be done. And I used to think everything was 50-50, but I don't think that's true. And the only reason I say that is because it's hard to be able to do things 50-50 all the time.
Yeah,
There's going to be parts of the journey where she's doing a little bit more with the baby, and I'm doing a little bit more with keeping the house clean. And then there might be a little bit more down the road when he's getting into sports and things like that, where I might be spending more time with him, and she might be spending more time around the house. So it's almost like you should always find something that you can do to contribute, even if it's not to the same extent. 50-50 doesn't necessarily mean, all right, well, you take him for this hour and I'm gonna take him for this hour and we're gonna split it up
right.
50-50. If she's working, I'm gonna have Jaden. Jaden is his name. And it doesn't matter how long I have him because he's my son. Like it at that point, it shouldn't be like you put a tally on when you had them and how long you had them, and then I'm going to do the same thing. It's a partnership. It's
Yeah.
not like, well, because you did this, I'm going to do this. No, if it works out and you're doing this, then I'm going to make sure that I'm doing something to use my time wisely, whether it be to get some work done, clean the house, do the laundry, wash the dishes. Like there's always something that can be done. But when you try to do things 50-50, it in your mindset, it almost like it's a tit for tat. It's like a competition. And when you get in that mindset, it starts to cause more harm than good. So my advice to any new father or someone that's planning on becoming a father is just always find something to do. It doesn't matter if it's and try not to do something for yourself. Try to do something that's going to benefit everyone. And if you can do that consistently, whether it's for your child or for your spouse, or just for everyone collectively, I think that is going to make things so much easier for everyone because when you're tired and your emotions are running high, like you're a little bit easier to get annoyed or be frustrated or flustered. So if you're always thinking about what can I do for my partner, it eliminates, not maybe not 100%, but pretty close to it. It eliminates any frustration towards you and your partner.
Beautiful. That's a great message. Man, that'll definitely be helpful to a lot of, like you said, new fathers. Um, shoot, it maybe not even as new, but it still may have not have clicked yet.
Hmm.
How beneficial the way you're approaching it has been. Um, yeah, that I love that. I love that. All right, I'm gonna shift it a little bit.
Okay.
Um, so I can hear in general, um, how it's changed you as a person. You haven't used the word. I'm doing this in reverse, but I can give the crowd a little tip. In one of my previous conversations, he mentioned that he realized how selfish he was, but not like to pick at himself. He just realized how he had to become. I guess a better way would be he had to become more selfless.
Hmm.
Um, once he became a father, and when that clicked, and that sounds like what you're explaining, like once I got over me and realized, hey, it's two more people here that need me and need me in more of a way than I thought they would.
Hmm.
It sounds like that's kind of how you break it, what you're breaking down to us.
Hmm.
um
Yeah, trying to be, and I can agree with that 100%. And when you use the term selfish, it's not like I'm only thinking about myself
right.
purposely. It's almost like it happens like automatically.
Yeah.
So like there would be parts of it like before when Jaden got here, I was so focused on like what do I need to do? What do I need to do that like I was missing so many other things. So like I was almost like waiting for her to tell me to do something. It
Mm,
was, and it's like I think the biggest thing is awareness. Is just being aware. So like if I'm so focused on, Jaden and there's dishes in the sink. If I, wasn't paying attention, I didn't realize that there were dishes in the sink. So I would wait for her to tell me like, "Hey, there's dishes in the sink," and then I would go get them. So it took me some time to be so much more aware of everything as a whole. When you have a kid, it almost like it tries to take all of your focus and put it on your son or your daughter, but you have to remember like there's so many other things going on around you, whether it be good or bad, that's going to impact your decision making. If you got a crap ton of work that you need to do but you still have to clean the house or watch your child and be a parent, you have to figure out, okay, well, how am I going to do this? What time management was probably one of the other most challenging things that it took me a while to do. And it gave me a new understanding for, other parents that were like always busy or didn't have time to do things. And I'm like, well, how do you not have time? Like, it's really not that hard. But now becoming a parent, I'm like, yo, I had somebody text me a week ago and I didn't even respond. I'm like, crap. And like I saw that happening so much where like you get so distracted. Like
Mhm.
it's so easy to fall into that hole of just putting all your focus on one thing. It took me a while to be able to like better manage my time, my thoughts, my essentially even my actions. And one of the things that became a struggle for me and my wife was we were so focused on being a parent that we lost our focus on being husband and wife.
I was gonna ask. Okay, that's beautiful. That you share that. Not that that happened, but
Right, right. But I'm glad that it happened early because it allowed us to do it sooner than later. Like if we waited till, Jaden was old enough to be able to pick up on, our conversations and words and, kids are sponges and they repeat things. Like we were able to kind of hash out some of these huge, huge challenges early so that as he grows up, we've already went over some of these big issues where we can continue not just being great parents but being supporting husband and wife to one another, so that way we truly understand who our spouse is, because
yeah,
we weren't together that long, as a married couple before we had a kid. Like we
right.
weren't even married a year before, Jaden came. And we didn't have enough time to, really live the married life and, go out and do things, whatever. But, we were also, in our 30s. So it was like, it's not that we missed out on anything, is we didn't take the chance to really understand who the new people we are, who we were becoming, being a husband and wife, because the person that you were when you were single, even when you're engaged, is still not the same person you are when you say I do and you put that ring on that person's finger and you are now two people into one. Like
Yes.
you change. Everything changes at that moment. Like a lot has to change. And it's again, it comes back to being selfless. It's not just you anymore.
Yeah.
You have to be able to understand your spouse on a level that you have to understand what makes them tick. You have to understand what their love language is. You have to be able to understand, at what moments do they need comfort without having them to always say, hey, I need this, I need this, I need this. Like when you can really dig deep and figure out and understand and learn who your significant other is, like maybe not everything, but the more important things, it makes life so much easier to be the best significant other. And when you're doing something right in one area, it tends to travel in many other areas, i.e., being, a mother or father. So
Yeah.
as you're being great husband and wife, it brings positive energy into the house, and then it allows that vibe to be better. Then it's a little bit easier to ride that wave when it comes to, all right, let's work together, let's be the best parents that we can possibly be, because we're already working on being the best husband and wife that we can be.
So, I just heard a gentleman say on Instagram, and I kind of dove into it with one of my male friends, because he made a statement. I was like, oh, that sounds like what this gentleman just said, but his stance was, if a man is a great husband, then he's automatically going to be a great father. It kind of sounds like what you're talking about, and
Mhm.
maybe not unintentionally, but does that like hit home for you? Like once you master being a great partner and husband to your wife, does that kind of spill over into being a great father?
Um, See, that for me, I would say, and that could be true for a lot of people, but as
Mhm.
far as for me personally, being a good husband and a good father are so different. Because there's different needs, and there's different desires, and there's different wants. Like early on, like you have no idea what your child may need. You might be able to pick up on different cues, whether he or she is hungry or tired, but that's like as far as it gets. When it comes to being a great husband or a great wife, you can actually sit down and you can have those conversations, and you can truly learn from one another. You can hype each other up. You can build with one another. Like just because you are a great husband, it
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily mean that you are a great father, because the duties that you have as a husband aren't necessarily the same duties that you have as being a father. You
Right.
can love your wife in one way, but then you have to be able to love, your children in a completely different way. So being able to be, like I was saying before, diversifying yourself and your emotions, being able to, like, okay, my wife, this is her personality. I don't know what personality my son has quite yet, but I have to be able to be so open to paying attention. The attentiveness is key when it comes to being a father, as well as it is being a husband. So there are some similarities that can transition from being a good husband to being a good father. But for me, it wasn't as parallel being a good husband as it is being a good father.
Heard that. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And then I could see definitely how it would be even more challenging if for fathers that are not in the household, to where they still
Hmm.
have to from a distance
Hmm.
learn those personalities of their children that they don't get as much time with. The no 24/7.
Especially if, let's just say you had somebody, my dad wasn't around all the time. He spent his time, out working and still, and he was, I don't want to put him on blast, but he did the best that he could as a husband for what that he knew, but he didn't do the same. It wasn't parallel to being a father.
Yeah.
He never changed a diaper. Between three kids, he never changed one diaper.
Mhm.
So you that doesn't necessarily mean that he's a bad husband. That's where I kind of say, like, there's kind of like a fine line. Like, there's similar characteristics and similar things, tendencies that can carry over. But my dad was never there, so, like, I don't really know what it's like to, like, feel that fatherly love. So I don't really necessarily know how to transfer that over to Jaden,
Yeah.
except except just trying to give him what I feel like a father would. And that's just based on the different father figures that I had growing up. I
Yes.
was more of a visual learner, even, being around, your mom and many other women that helped me out become the man that I am now. I learned primarily from women. So I have most of my how I approach things typically come from almost like a woman's perspective.
Hmm.
So I feel like it's easier for me to understand people better because I understand myself, but I have a true understanding for women just because I was poured into primarily by women. So that helped me as a husband and also as a father, because I can understand my wife a little bit better because I understand women just based on all the knowledge and the information that I got from being raised by primarily women.
So so that sorry, now it's got my wheels turning. So that makes a lot of sense, and thank you for that, breaking that down and offering that perspective.
Mm.
And I guess as you walk through, you were kind of explaining your father. I can see how even now the roles of a husband, a dad, or father, and even as a man can differentiate in a lot of ways, but
Mhm.
sometimes maybe get crossed to where it kind of hinders, because maybe your father was looking at, like, I'm being the best man I could be, which
Mhm.
leads into being the best husband, but not so much based on the way that we're raised. It doesn't really translate to being the best
Mhm.
father based on how
Right.
society tells you need to be a man. So I could see how they conflict in ways too.
And you got even people in society today to say they're scared to show certain emotions because it makes them look weak. And I'm
Yeah,
like, where in society did we learn that?
yeah.
Men cry too. God gave us all these emotions for a
Right.
reason. If we
Right.
weren't supposed to cry, He wouldn't have gave us the ability to cry.
Yeah.
So being able to have, like I'm going back to being diverse, being able to diversify yourself and not being just under one umbrella. Like, when you can understand all these different emotions, it helps you be a better father, especially when it comes to having a younger kid, because you don't have a lot to go off of. But if you have a big sympathetic heart because you understand emotions very well, I feel like that's a really really good tool for a lot of men out there. Like, it doesn't make you look weak. It's really not weak at all. There's so many men that cry alone, and don't want people to know, and that's fine. There's no shade toward them, but whenever you can really um, open up and not feel like such a like making it feel like you're weak or that you're a burden. Like when you can just attack it and just let it be what it is, I think that will give a lot of men a lot of hope when it comes to being a better husband as well as being a better father.
So, so I love that, and I would 100% agree. Um, yeah, it gives you more room to be your full self,
Hmm.
um, which gives you more room to maximize like your gifts and your advantages
Hmm.
of being more in tune, your intuition, all those things,
Absolutely.
within all those roles. Love it. I love it. Okay, cool. So okay, we're flowing in our own little way. I like this. Um,
Yeah.
I love this. Um, so you mentioned it a little bit. I am gonna throw one of my questions in here to guide these next few moments. Um, you mentioned being poured into a lot by women.
Mhm.
How has your community, I guess even then and now, how has your community played a part in this first year of fatherhood in your journey?
It has been such a positive impact, not just on myself, but my wife as well. Um, it you can't. It's hard to be a new parent without people around you supporting you and helping you because it makes you feel like you're not alone. And going back to my wife, she's that person that doesn't like to inconvenience other people, so she is that person that doesn't like to ask for help. But I'm because I was helped so much, it helped me to understand that no matter who you are, at some point in your life you're going to need help.
Yeah.
It's just going to happen. Like you have to be able to put that pride aside. And when so many of our friends that live close by would say like, hey, do you need anything? And like for me, I'm like, if you're asking, that means you truly want to. Because in the same sentence I would offer the same thing to my close friends, like, hey, do you need something? I'm asking because I'm really truly want to help and be there for you.
Yeah.
So having that understanding and that awareness would put us in a better position for me to be able to take that role and to lead and say, yes, we would love this help, whether it be some diapers or some wipes, or could you come sit with Jaden for 20 minutes so my wife can take a shower without having to worry about if he's crying or this, that, and the third. Like
Yeah.
being able to have those people around you, I think it's what made us into who we were. Yes, we put in a lot of work ourselves, and working together and just being able to overcome any obstacles and challenges that we may face. But with our family and our friends that are close by, even those who are far away that are sending like, hey, just thinking about you, like even just those kind words would go a long way. Like if we were having a rough day because Jaden might have been a little bit fussy, and we're still a little on edge because we don't really know what we're doing. We're just winging it. Everybody's winging it at some point. But being able to hear those positive words like, hey, we got your back, we love you, we support you, like those things go a long way. So I challenge a lot of people, just with life in general, and all the things that's going on in the world. Like don't don't lose sight of the people in your life. Always reach out, always check up on people, because you never know what people are going through, especially as new parents.
Yeah. Beautiful. Though. Okay. So I don't want to take us too far back. Um This is kind of how I want to consolidate. Can you share what a couple of your biggest challenges have been to date, and how you are overcoming them, or how you learned how to maneuver?
Hmm. um I would probably say my number one biggest challenge has been time management.
Okay.
And it's only because actually, let me say that one for number two.
Okay.
My number one challenge has that has been hard for me was essentially being the man of the house. And I know that's kind of like, it's very vague and everybody has their opinions on what it means to be the man of the house.
Mhm.
But for me, I'm a strong Christian man, and I'm a big believer. So being a man of the house was being mentally strong for not just myself anymore, but for my family. And when things aren't going our way, I have to be the one to be able to step up and provide that positive reinforcement or that affirmation or some act of kindness. Like that was hard for me because I was so focused on trying to be so perfect as to be a perfect father, that's when I started losing sight of being a good husband. And then I was also losing sight on what was your purpose for doing this in the beginning. It's not necessarily just being a father, is to be the provider, not just financially, but just being the man, the spiritual provider for our home, and being that leader that is, no matter what obstacle we were going through, I'm the one that's, my chest is up, my head is high, and I'm, confirming that, hey, we got this. We've, been through these different challenges and we've come through it. We've been through, some worse things and we've always made it through. So just being that positive reinforcement in our home was probably one of the most challenging things because again, I didn't have that male role model. So all the thoughts and all the things that I learned primarily came from women. So I didn't really truly know what is it like to be the man of the house. My dad was gone, like, so I knew that wasn't it,
Yeah.
because I knew how I felt not having my dad around. So like, okay, that's definitely not it. So what does it necessarily mean to be this great father figure and man of the house? And that it took me forever to get to that point. And what actually led me to that point was, God himself, and being able to spend more time, reading devotions. And it was like I entered into this realm of self growth, and I was reading all the time. I was reading the Bible. I was reading devotionals. I was reading motivational books. I was reading things to help me not drift so far away from God. And as once I started doing that consistently, I can't even lie and say that like things just started to become easier for me as a father. Like that challenge that I had before where it took me months to click is because I drifted so far away from God that I was trying to do all these things by myself. And like I said before, at some point you're going to need help. And what's the one person that can help you through no matter what? And for me, and somebody else can say something else, but it's God, it's Christ. And once I really devoted that time, it made things so much easier for me. Where like I wasn't as tired as I normally was. I wasn't as flustered or frustrated as I normally was. Like my wife could do something or say something, and instead of retaliating, I understood that okay, this is just her reacting to something that I may have said or may have done. I'm not going to judge her or make her feel bad about it. I need to understand what it was that I did so I can prevent that from happening again. Like my awareness changed so much to the like it wasn't like a finger pointing, it wasn't the blame game. It was understanding my wife and like what am I doing? What am I doing to contribute to this? Is it something good? Is it something positive? Like once I started working on myself, parenting, I'm not gonna say it was easy, but it became significantly easier because my mindset was where I needed to be all along.
Yeah. So turning inward, turning upward and inward and growing individually sound like spilled out and poured over into everything.
Yep, yep. And we all want to be our best self,
Yeah.
everybody does, but it's more than just talking about it. Like you can't just do something a few times and expect it to just grow. Like even when you want to plant a garden, like you got to go out there all the time, water it. You have to water it. You have to water it. I mean, I'm sure there's other things you have to do, but it's not like "Oh, I'm going to water it every once in a while and it's going to grow into something beautiful." And it doesn't work like that. When it comes to being a parent or even a spouse, like you have to water yourself and provide sunlight even if it's cloudy, you have to find ways to bring that positive light, that positive energy, and into your home, and be able to do that consistently to the point that you starting to feel that there's more good than bad. And it's so hard to do because in today we're so busy, we're so distracted. There's technology is changing every single day. There's a new phone, there's a new gadget, there's new this, there's TV, there's sports, and all these things that try to distract us from building ourselves. But if we can stay really focused on what our actual goal is, it'll allow us to be more open and free to do these other things and have extracurricular activities, because I wouldn't say master, but you're mastering self growth. And as you build upon yourself, your spouse will see the changes that you're making, and they will then too start to do that self growth. And that's what happened with me and my wife. She was always tired, and I understood why. So I took it upon myself, like, if you're going to be the leader of the house, then you need to set the example. You need to be the one that's being positive. It doesn't matter if your wife or your husband is super mad or upset or frustrated. You have to be able to
Yeah.
have that mental control to, like, all right, you can't give in to that. And it's so easy if you're in a relationship and one person's trying to paint a picture or make a point, and you're like, that's wrong. Instead of making it seem like it's wrong, like, just it really doesn't matter who's right or is wrong. All that matters is, hey, I just want to let you know I hear you. I'm listening to you. I'm taking in what you're saying, and I'm going to put it in my pocket. And I promise you, I'm going to make sure that I apply these things that you're saying. It is not about, no, you're wrong. This is like, none of that. It shouldn't matter anymore. When it comes to being a parent, you have to be able to set the example that you want your kid to do. Because if you're leading a life where, if you saw your kid doing the same thing, you would be upset, then you're doing it wrong. And that's kind of the approach that I took on trying to build myself up to be the best father. Is like, I want Jaden to be someone that not only he is proud of, but I want him to be able to learn from us a lot of the things that he needs to be successful before he gets out in the world, because everybody knows what's going on in the world now. Like, things are different than they were 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. So, like, I want to be able to set a great enough example, especially because I have a young man that will be growing up to a young man soon. And I want him to be a great impact in the community. And that starts with not just myself, but our family being able to lead him in the right direction.
That's right. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Prel. This has been extremely insightful for me. And I know that it will be insightful for our listeners, and the future fathers, the current fathers, no matter how much time they've been in. I feel like it's a lot of gems in here that they might can lean on or even find confirmation in.
Mhm.
So I truly appreciate you opening up to this space, Mattie Mondays, and sharing your journey. And heck, I'm proud. I'm proud to hear like the growth. I've always known your heart, but it's really cool to hear the growth that you have continued to experience, even in this short time of a year, as a man and as a person.
Well, thank you.
It's really dope.
If I could say one last thing that
Ooh, please.
I think is absolutely important when it comes to being married and having a family, is communication. And that can go so many different ways, but you have to learn how to communicate. And it's not just having a conversation, it's listening. If you can't listen, you can't have a conversation. It's not always about what you can say or what you want somebody to know about you. You have to be able to listen. If you can listen better than you can speak, you're going to have so much more success as a family than you are for someone who would rather speak instead of listen.
Bars. Bars. And that's how we're gonna
Bars.
wrap it just like that. Thank you so much, Prayer. I love you. And
Absolutely. I love you as well.
happy Father's Day.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. And I wish everybody much love, success, and abundance, and um, do the best you can. That's all we can do.